Hello and a warm welcome to my video, and I am very excited to be here with you today as we have an amazing topic to discuss. And for you who don't know me, I'm Tineke Zoet. I'm an ex-seafarer. I am a maritime human factor specialist, and I'm also the owner of Buoyancy Coaching. I work with professionals within the maritime industry to navigate their way through toxic work environments and overcome self-esteem issues and anxiety. And I want to give you a warm welcome to my colleague Alasdair Ireland. Hi Alasdair, so nice for you to be here today with me.
Hello Tineke.
Hi, and maybe you can introduce yourself a bit as well to our audience.
Yeah, I suppose for 40 years now, I've been learning, practicing and observing leadership and teamwork from a practitioner as well as a training perspective in both the military and commercial contexts. And I think that one very consistent theme is that improvements in practical resource management would be beneficial in so many cases, but they're within easy reach, and I think we're going to talk about some of that today.
Yes, so we're going to discuss practical resource management, why it is so important and what it is exactly. And as far as my understanding of practical resource management is that it is a set of protocols that is implemented in industries where human error has a devastating effect. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's probably true, although we could simplify this as well to say that it's in many ways nothing more than about getting teams to achieve results. Now, sometimes the teams could be big or small, sometimes the task could be straightforward or complex, but in a nutshell, this is simply about getting teams to achieve results.
And for who is this relevant?
Well, I think it's relevant for more people than we often realize. And there are aspects of this that are relevant to all team members, all team players, not just to the leaders. And I think it probably applies more widely than just in the maritime industry. I think that in any setting where teams are being challenged to achieve goals, then there could be some application of these ideas.
Mm-hmm. So what is the main idea?
Well, simply that there are a limited number of core elements, really core elements that contribute to performance, and that they can be quite straightforward to understand. It's about giving simple tools around these core ideas, giving simple tools to leaders and critically to all team members. Now, leaders would still have the responsibility for outcomes, but in lots of cases now, we just don't even give our team members the simplest tools that would assist them. And so one of the big ideas is to provide these ideas and tools to everyone in the team.
And why is this so important right now in the world?
Well, I suppose safety has always been important, and but we see that it can be difficult to achieve in lots of circumstances. And then if we look at some factors around the current situation, we've got extended contracts, fatigue, we've got people returning to work sometimes after extended breaks. Sometimes to new procedures that they've not seen before. Then there's the mental health component as well, and none of these factors help. So I think that anything that we can do in terms of simple, easy to understand tools that help develop performance has got to be a positive step.
Mm-hmm. So what are these tools that you mentioned that we need?
Well, I think there's kind of four main areas that we can apply tools within. One of them is around leadership and teamwork. Mm-hmm. One of them is around improving situational awareness. Another is around planning and decision making. And finally, I would say communications as the kind of glue that holds all that lot together, or the oil that makes that all function.
Yeah.
But communications, I think, wraps around the other three main points.
It sounds very straightforward, but how do you know this?
Well, I would say if you were to go and read an accident report, almost any accident report, and make a note whenever you're reading this report, you encounter something that rings a little mental alarm bell. Mm-hmm. And as you go through the report, there'll be a bunch of things that you read and you go, oh, there's an area of concern. And when you've gone through the report, categorize all of them, and you'll be able to put virtually all of those mental alarm bells into one of those categories. It'll be an issue to do with leadership and management. Mm-hmm. It'll be an issue to do, leadership and teamwork. Yeah. It'll be to do with situational awareness. It'll be to do with planning and decision making, yeah. Or it will be to do with communications.
So one of these four.
Yeah, almost all of them.
So these four core elements you just described, they feature a lot, yeah? But is there the understanding of any of these particularly poorly understood?
Well, I think there are, and perhaps when we think about them, it's self-evident, but there's a few points. The first one I would say is that more people are in leadership roles than they realize. Mm-hmm. I think more people are participating in an activity called teamwork than in fact realize that they are. And another key thing that we see is that the key to success, the one magic element that sorts out a problem could come from any team member. But that relies on there being an environment in which that team member is able to contribute and make that happen.
Yeah, so it's not just a top core leadership management, it's going through every layer, and everybody in the team is responsible for and adding value to that. Yeah. So is that it, or just, people need to be aware of just these four elements? Is it just communication, leadership and teamwork, planning, decision making, and situational awareness, or are there others?
Well, they're definitely the core of this model, but I think there are other ideas that might surround that better understanding would help us. I think if we took time to just understand the context a little bit before we look at these four themes. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think we should recognize that there are real life factors that conspire to make things more difficult. I mean, we don't live in a beautiful model. And thirdly, and on the other hand, there are some easy to implement tools which can help us make progress in these areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and you said in the beginning, a context. What do you mean by setting the context?
Well, I think it's helpful to know how accidents happen. Mm-hmm. I think it's helpful to have an understanding about where does quality come from? How do we create quality? Yeah. I think it's helpful to have some understanding, even at a relatively basic level, about humans behave in different situations. And my point here about each of those three topics is even to provide a basic common understanding is something that we don't currently formally present, especially not to all levels in the team.
Yeah. And what do you mean by real life factors then that can frustrate performance?
Okay, well, I said that we don't live in this beautiful model, and there's external things that conspire against us. One of them could be culture. where in multinational crews or any multinational, multicultural setting, we just have different norms and we respond to different situations culturally in different ways. And at least an understanding of that would help us get off on the right foot.
Yeah.
Fatigue is an ever-present concern, and it clearly has impacts on performance in all sorts of ways. And perhaps related to culture, but it's a separate problem, is that language differences can introduce difficulties in understanding and difficulties in conveying meaning. So if we can understand that, then we can think about strategies to help overcome some of the difficulties that that introduces.
Yeah, so culture, fatigue and language. And what are the tools that could help with this?
Okay, there's a few, I think that, and they may sound straightforward, but I come back to the point that we very often don't invest in our more junior people. So we've got at every level of the team an understanding of these things. One of them would be briefing. Briefing, if you like, is a special form of communications. It's got quite a bounded purpose. It's essential that it's clear and that understanding is transferred and commonly shared. And we don't always achieve that. And at that point, we're off to a bad start. There are tools to help us develop synergy. The idea that the output of a team's activity is bigger than the sum of its parts. And we can think about how to make that work. Assertiveness is a very important part of the toolkit here. And by assertiveness, I absolutely do not just mean senior people being loud. I mean assertiveness at every level. That is every team member appreciating that they're empowered, that they may have the key to success, and realizing their obligation to speak up when they have an idea or whenever they see something going wrong. And all too often, our junior folks don't get that responsibility, often because they've not been told about it. And so there's a little toolkit here around assertiveness. And I think the last thing I would mention at this stage would be resilience. You know, things don't always go perfectly. Things will go wrong. And so the ability to respond when things have gone wrong and get back on track and get ahead of the problem again is a powerful one. And there's some simple tools around resilience that can help us as well.
Yeah. That is really so interesting because I can really relate to that as well, and your introduction to the broad ideas behind practical resource management. And I can see easily that each of these pillars that you introduced could be discussed in more detail, and we get into it in each topic. So I would suggest, if our audience agree, and if you agree, that our future discussions are going to be to look at each and one of these pillars in more detail. And we do the video again in a short period of time, and we make a series. And I thank you very much for you being here with us today. And for our audience, thank you for listening. And if you have any ideas, comments, suggestions, questions, and please do comment in the box below, and we will try to take that into consideration for our next video. Thank you very much, Alasdair. Thank you.
Thanks, Danica. It's been a pleasure. See you again.
Thank you.